Welcome to Multiple Offers, a real estate show with competing perspectives. Today we are discussing slimy sales tactics.
Put that coffee down.
If you're good at something, never do it for free.
How'd you get the gig? Oh, you know, they were hiring. It was only a 2-week course.
I will sell this house today.
What are you, some kind of real estate agent?
Oh, he's a realtor. There is a difference somehow.
This is Multiple Offers, a real estate show.
It feels like a really long time since it's just been the three of us recording an episode. Guys, it's episode 23. It's just Matt, Jeff, and Jer here today, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, it's a Jordan episode, and we're back on our original sort of turf stomping ground.
Yeah, we're back at Matt's house.
It's
Matt,
just us, no
Matt,
strangers.
we missed you. I missed you.
I missed
last
that episode. I apologize to our listeners, but
Family emergency.
as Jared was not having that.
No, he
He's
called me out.
Do not try to make it seem like this is a big deal.
Well, and you seemed like you were in a panic when I'm like, what do you mean you're not going to be here? And you're like, I got to get up to Tulameen. I got to do this. I got to weatherproof.
Right. It snowed last night.
So I feel like I have a bit of validation with my family emergency comment.
Family property emergency. But it has been a while, and it's just the three of us now, and it's kind of our regular show routine because we've really been out of the routine with guests and sort of less real estate related topics and more elections. So this is cool. I'm looking forward to it.
Tangentially real estate related, whereas today we're going full real estate.
Absolutely.
What's been going on with you, Matt?
You know what was kind of on my mind as we talk about weather changing and all the rest of it is we did a couple open houses this weekend, and it was absolutely pouring rain Sunday afternoon. Pouring rain. And we did some opens at a number of listings, and they were not very well attended. And I never like to subscribe to the idea that weather really affects how many people come to your open house, because if they're interested in your property, they're probably coming no matter what. But
we debate it back and forth.
Were they first week on the market listings?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I had a first week on the market listing, and I had more people through than any open I've done in the last 2 weeks. Yeah. But we all know there's a lot of excitement in that first week.
Yeah,
right?
First week is a big difference. So I just noticed that, and I thought to myself, okay, do I have to just accept that sometimes the weather does keep people inside or whatever it is, right? But
I still feel like that the people that want to purchase a property that are wanting to buy, they're not stuck in their house and saying, no, I cannot go see these properties because it's raining out, especially in Vancouver.
I actually subscribe to the opposite. I get worried when it's a really nice day, especially when it's the first really nice day in a long time.
Yeah, and that's fair too. So for exactly that reason, I try to not think about weather at all, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise you keep saying, well, it's so nice out, people didn't come. It was so bad out, people didn't come. I mean,
it was exactly lukewarm today, and people didn't come.
And we'd be waiting to do open houses. Like, no, guys, not this weekend. No,
yeah.
It might rain.
Yeah, let's try to get the weather forecast just right. Not the way to do it. I don't know, man. Jeff?
I had, we all had a good week. The one thing that I thought was really cool is I did a deal with a couple that are listeners of the show, and you guys did a deal with the couples that are listeners of the show.
Yep.
Which was kind of fun.
Always fun. And
not to plug our audience too much, but off air, we all talked about it, and they were like the best clients we've ever had. So thank you, listeners.
It was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to spend too much time gushing over it, but it was a great experience, and happy that we both had success on the same week, so no one's feeling jealous.
Yeah.
I think he had a little bit more lead time, so we were a little bit quicker. But
really?
I'm just putting it out there, just so people,
yeah.
in the future, if anybody's...
It was really weird when Jared came into my office and was like, when's your subject removal day? I'm like, why? And then he's just writing a day earlier. Just We're not competitive at all.
We need this done by Friday. It's imperative.
Well, and both groups used a friend of the show, Stephanie Barrett, which if people want to go back and listen to Steph's episode, she did a whole episode on...
Matt knows the number.
Oh, Matt, do you know the number?
Oh, yeah, episode 6.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's
and
fantastic
possibly
too.
Episode 27. We'll probably have her.
I think we'll have Steph back pretty soon. She was talking to me about how much people are starting to use alternative lending and thought that it might be worth coming on. And,
I'm interested to hear
discussing.
about that.
Yeah, me too.
And we need an update overall, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Steph came on in the spring.
For sure.
So it's time to hear from her again.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Mr. Jeremy.
Well, normally you ask me how things are going first, and then
did I throw you off?
I usually get to have something good in there and beat Matt, because a lot of times if it's going to be Matt, he'll just sort of take any sort of updates that I might have. But
because you're the newest guys,
we're the same person. I'm just super pumped. It's fall. I love this time of year. Also, I just had a BK Joe coffee, which has just got me got the blood flowing. Also, it's like election time. We learned a lot about some of the ins and outs of city council. Learned a lot from the incumbents. Also learned a lot about the progressives. Which was interesting. So it's just been it's good. We don't always have an election, so it's lots of exciting stuff going on. That's it. Other than the new new buyers from the show that were amazing, as we mentioned.
Cool. Well, today what we're going to do is something that we haven't done on the show before. We're going to talk about sales tactics, and I'll get into how we're doing that. But why don't we play our cool bumper, Matt?
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
You decide your own level of involvement.
Well, I guess this is a case where we'll have to agree to disagree.
I don't agree to that.
Neither do I.
Wrong.
National debt.
Wrong.
You're not advocating.
Wrong. With that money, lost one.
Very nice words, but happens to be wrong.
You're listening to Multiple Offers, a real estate show.
Now, the birth of what we're going to talk about today happened probably a few years ago. I was dealing with a buyer who was a psychology professor. And while we were out looking, she said to me after the process was finished, you should really read this book by Robert Cialdini, who is a psychology professor, I believe in Arizona, called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. And what this book is it is all about why people buy, and it's actually used for the target of the book is the consumer, how to protect yourself against sales tactics.
That's who it was written for.
That is who it is written for. And I happily said to my client when she recommended it, oh yeah, I've read that. Salespeople all over the world read this book as a how to sell.
Become this textbook for salesmen.
Oh, it is a total textbook for how people persuade people. And this book has had a bunch of different names over the years. Right now, I believe it's called The Psychology of Persuasion. You can find it under Influence, Science, and Practice. Sometimes it's just called Influence, but they're all essentially the same book if people are interested. And there's 6 essential methods of sales that he goes through in the book. And I thought it would be fun because neither of you guys have read this book, correct?
Correct. I have not.
True.
Okay, so I thought it would be fun to go through each of his 6 sort of fundamental sales tactics, talk about how these are applied in real estate, and just to have some fun with it, also apply a how greasy is this sales method. And a lot of them will be sliding scales. And Matt, you had talked about creating a scale. So what's our greasiest image? What tops the scale as the greasiest? This is disgusting.
To me, it's a KFC double down.
A KFC double down,
which is, for those of you who don't know, instead of and I've had this once by accident, accidentally on purpose.
It accidentally just fell in my mouth.
They substitute a bun for fried chicken.
It's like a fried chicken sandwich with 2 pieces of fried chicken.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
how very American.
It's quite greasy, and there's bacon on top.
Okay,
that would maybe be mine.
So the double down.
So we're gonna call the ultimate grease factor a double down.
KFC double down.
KFC double down.
Okay.
Or a full pack of like thick bacon, but
make up your mind.
Double down consensus.
I'm all over double down.
Okay.
What is the least greasy thing on our scale?
Rice cake.
Rice cakes.
The worst, the driest thing
Okay. So we've got the double down. We've got rice cakes. Do we need a middle
ground?
Middle ground?
Yeah, Uncle Jesse.
John Stamos?
Like from Full House?
That's not food.
Okay, you got to explain that one, Matt.
Uncle Jesse had the greasy hair, man.
He did have kind of...
His hair was greasy.
He had rocker greasy hair.
But he still had a heart of gold, so he's not full grease?
Yeah, he's in the middle.
Okay.
He's got the greasy appearance, but it turns out...
And he could lean one way or the other, like him eating a double down.
He might have a double down. Okay, fair enough. All right, so we've got rice cakes. We've got Uncle Jesse. We've got double down. Let's start on our first sales tactic. And this is something most listeners are going to be very familiar with. Cialdini calls this principle scarcity. And this is something anybody who's in sales, I think, will have had people discuss, of making the buyer feel like whatever it is they're buying could go away, they could lose it. And in the book, the example he gives is Tickle Me Elmo. So I don't know if you guys know this. I didn't know this before I read the book. Tickle Me Elmo was the way Tickle Me Elmo was introduced. And if we all remember, it was the first Christmas gift that was like, we've got to have this.
Must have it and can't get it.
And can't get it. So this was actually
engineered.
It was 100% engineered. It was a plot by toy stores who all got together and said, after Christmas, we have about 3 months where nobody buys toys. And they intentionally carried less of Tickle Me Elmo, knowing it was going to be crazy amounts of hype, knowing that parents would go, they couldn't get Tickle Me Elmo, they'd buy something else, but then they'd tell their kid, because they still want their kid to have a good Christmas, don't worry, when it's back in stock, we're going to get you Tickle Me Elmo. And so they got sales post-Christmas from Tickle Me Elmo. And that was the whole point. And also the fact that you couldn't get it, everybody wants what everybody else wants, just drove the hype even further.
I did not know that about... Did you know that, Matt?
I didn't know it was the first one.
I didn't know it was... yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they've been doing it ever since. They do it.
There's
often.
always one now.
Nintendo seems to love it. When they first did it with the Wii every year at Christmas, they seem to run out of inventory.
Yeah. Yeah. We just can't make it fast enough.
Yeah, weird.
So what does scarcity look like in real estate?
So you want to talk... I think also it's a bit... You want us to sort of identify whether we think it is or not, or whether...
Well, let's first discuss how this applies to real estate. And then we can talk about our grease factor afterwards.
Okay. Scarcity. Can you use it in a sentence?
An example...
I'm totally kidding.
Okay. I was going to say an example of scarcity would be...
Seller's market. Not enough inventory.
Yeah. And there's a distinction, too. Because there's real scarcity, which we often have in our market, where there really is not enough.
Which was what I was going to say is that we do have to preach that to people.
Yeah,
for certain products, and it's not us selling. So this is going to be difficult to actually, because it's not black and white.
No, but you have to just speak to the scenarios.
Okay.
We're trying to educate the listener on what's real and what's not,
and educate me apparently.
Yeah, the first thing that came to mind for me is when you're touring a property with a client, and the listing agent is saying, "Well, I've had 2 other people who've come in and they tell me they're going to write an offer after the open house today."
Yeah.
That's the greasy move.
That would be the double down.
That's the KFC double down.
Yeah. Yeah, or the next level one of that I find where the client doesn't always know they're being greasy is, oh yeah, you got in before the open house. If you're interested, we're having an open house again Sunday 2 to 4, which every time triggers, oh, maybe we should write before the open house because we've seen it, but nobody else has seen it yet.
Yeah. Someone else is going to come in and love it, and they're going to buy it, so we better buy it before the open house.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason this is very effective.
So
it's fear of loss, right?
Yes.
So coming from a listing agent saying that a lot of times, and nowadays, I mean, buyers are so much more savvy than they used to. Like, our generation, just with internet, with everything, with research, there's a lot of tools that are out there. So somebody telling you, like, you better get this or it's not going to last, people are usually kind of aware of that. And if anything, especially if it's a buyer's market, they've got the power. Like, okay, cool.
Well, and the hardest thing about it is exactly what you said, Jer, because I don't think it's greasy at all if, in Matt's example, if that's true, like if that agent actually has had somebody contact them saying we're going to write an offer, I really want him to tell me so that we know to make a decision or not. But if he's lying, oh man, is that a scumbag move?
Yeah, and those are the ones where he's not quite saying I have an offer written. It's, people have said they like it.
Yeah.
I had somebody through for a second showing earlier today. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, you got to listen to the language.
Yeah, it's not definitive. They're just trying to set you up, right? And hoping that you take the bait.
Yeah.
Without saying sort of black and white, I have received an offer that you would have to compete with. That agent may even know that isn't going to turn into an offer.
Yeah.
But they have enough information to say it may not even be true. They may not have been a second showing, but that's the fine line there of greasy salesman or not. And our clients need to understand, should maybe not listen so much to that and just focus on their own situation.
So here's an interesting question, because I think the offer deadline is also a form of scarcity marketing. We will accept offers by this time. We've set a deadline when if you don't have it by this time, there's a good chance you're going to miss it. Do we feel like the offer deadline is greasy or not?
No.
I'm hoping for a little elaboration.
I thought maybe somebody else would also have a yes or no opinion.
I agree with you.
So I don't think it's greasy because if there are more than one person genuinely interested and you think that it's a property that's going to have that much interest, there's benefit to allowing people to prepare themselves to write the appropriate offer that they want to make. And if you do take a risk as a seller, because if it turns out that no one else is interested and you're standing there with just the one interested party,
you've lost a lot of leverage.
And I think something to note is that actually came from an innocent place. If things are picking up, market's picking up, ton of showings, most sellers don't even want to look at an offer anyways. Well, we should probably just wait. Let's at least get the open house. Came really early, and it became common practice that let's get everybody through, and then it evolved to you're not seeing it unless it's the open house.
Well, which would you prefer as the buyer? And we're not seeing this as a tactic right now, but when the market gets hot again, it'll probably be a thing again. It sucks that you see a property and you can't write on it for a couple days. It also sucks that a listing hit, but you weren't on your computer. Somebody got in the first hour and they bought it before you even had a chance to get to see it. Both are tough situations for the buyer, and it's an either-or situation. If you don't wait for offers, that's going to happen. There's going to be a lot of people who wanted to see it who didn't get a chance.
Yeah, as a general statement, I'd like people to have the opportunity, both as a representative of seller and buyer. Right. The only other thing that comes to mind for me was scarcity on a very separate note that we're not really involved with on a direct level often is at the sales centers. So for pre-sales.
Ooh, yes.
Right. They play that hard.
Yeah. The dots.
The red
Courtney
dots. We talked about that in episode 17 with Courtney. Right?
Yeah.
So she's our pre-sales insider. And we were talking about that, how they do create that scarcity to say, well, somebody else is interested in this one. I've put a red dot on it. But I can call you if it comes available again.
Yeah.
Or I had it happen with my clients where they said, somebody else is here and wants this. You must buy it now without your realtor, who won't get paid.
Yeah.
Because he's not here. But if you don't, there's somebody else who wants it. And miraculously, very funny situation 4 days later when my clients walked away, there was no one else interested. There was no one else knocking on the door.
Scarcity is one of the more high-pressure tactics, I would say.
Yeah, don't walk out the door.
Yeah.
Because someone else might buy it.
And
there's no accountability, too, right now to know whether that was true or not.
Yeah, and especially in the sales center where kind of all bets are off, right?
I thought last weekend there was a red dot. The red dot's moved. It's interested in another property.
I mean, I often use that line. When we talk about properties that have an offer on it that's maybe subject to sale or something to that effect, or there's someone else interested. It's just like men and women out there in the dating world that when you have a wedding ring on, somebody else likes them. They're partnerable, so it makes them more desirable in a sense.
So we're just throwing back to all our old episodes here, because which episode, Matt, was real estate is like dating?
Oh, that was episode 4, I think.
Yeah,
it's
an early one. Yeah.
So to kind of recap, I think it's partially the language. If you hear a guy saying, like, I don't know, I had a couple, you guys seem pretty interested. I can throw you a bone here. I got another couple coming later for their second time. But if you write today, we can make something happen. Probably full double downer. Someone saying that I've got a second showing. I have someone who said that they're going to be meeting with their client. Yeah. Just a heads up. you guys might want to start thinking a little bit sooner, because we aren't waiting until after the open house. If something does come in, we will deal with it. A bit of a different way of approaching it, but
yeah, for sure. Okay, well, unless you guys have anything else you want to add to that, I'm ready to move on to our next. So pillar number 2 is reciprocity. And this is something anybody who's ever been to a meeting at their office where somebody came to pitch them something and that person brought a box of donuts and coffee has experienced reciprocity. What reciprocity, the example they give in the book is they did this study where there were 2 test cases. In test case number 1, 2 gentlemen were sitting in a waiting room, and one of the gentlemen asked the other, my daughter's soccer team is selling 50-50 tickets. Would you like to buy them? And in scenario number 2, it was exactly the same, except before he offered to sell her the 50-50 ticket, or to sell the 50-50 tickets, he walked in and said, I bought a Coke in the vending machine, but 2 popped out. Would you like this free Coke? And not surprising, the guy who gave the free Coke sold way more 50-50 tickets than the guy who did nothing before he asked for the order. But what was kind of surprising was they polled everybody as they exited, and the people who were given the free Coke didn't like that guy any better than the people who didn't. They just felt a duty. Like, it's human nature when somebody does something for us to pay it back somehow. And that's what reciprocity is all about. So what does this look like in real estate?
You've maybe thought about this more than we have, Jeff. You know, the funny thing about reciprocity that I will stall from giving an actual answer.
And I'm putting you guys on the spot. So.
Yeah, we had no prep for this one, so to think of examples is a little tricky off the top of my head. But you've talked about reciprocity before, and I never really spent much time thinking about it until you sort of told me these stories.
Yeah.
Inherently, and I don't know why. I don't know what went wrong in my upbringing.
Yeah.
But I don't like debt. Like, I don't like to owe anything to anyone.
I think a lot of people feel that way, and because of this. Like,
and I don't know where it came from that I have this fear of it. But
it's from elementary school. What did you do to that can of Coke?
Somebody offers me a glass of water, and my instinct is to say no thank you, even though I'm thirsty.
Yeah.
Because I worry that I now
you owe them. Yeah.
And I feel a real obligation.
So nothing is wrong with you, Matt. You're just a human being. Like, this feeling is very real.
But I can resist it like way too heavily.
Yeah.
And so that's maybe where I don't think of reciprocity examples in business very much, because I tend to steer away from them, even though I agree with you, they are effective in showing someone that even that you care for them, right? I want to do something for you because I do care for you.
Yeah, totally. And on that note, maybe I'll just go into my thoughts and you guys can jump in about more real estate examples as you think of them. I actually think, again, intent really matters. Like, my entire business is built on trying to do more than my clients expect, trusting that if I do that for enough people, they will refer me. That's my entire business model. So I would say reciprocity is how I built my business. I think it gets greasy when you expect it. You're like, you owe me because I did this for you.
Right.
But just going out there and trying to, like a client party is an example. All of us have thrown client parties.
Yep.
They're a way of saying thank you to our clients for doing business. And also, part of the reason you throw a client party is you want that person to have good feelings about you and either use you again or recommend you to their friends. I don't feel personally like there's anything greasy about that. In fact, I think it's a really nice way to do business.
Yeah, we try to structure it in a way that it's authentic, and we really do sincerely.
You're thanking them for the business throughout the years.
Yeah, and to your point, Jeff, is you don't go in expecting something in return for doing it.
Yeah.
Now, you do typically expect something to earn the invitation, right?
I mean, to get an invite to my client party, you have to have either done business with me or referred business to me. That's how.
Yeah. Now, what happens after that is not a requirement.
Yeah, and I mean, they don't owe me anything.
Yeah. But I guess to me, like, I agree there is a level of reciprocity there in doing it, that you hope that you are then sort of rewarded for having done that. But I have such a phobia to it that I just don't look at it that way. I plan the entire thing in my head is to say, this is just to say thank you. This is to do the right thing. This is to do the right work for you. And in doing that, you will refer me. You will want to do this. But I guess I get worried about tangible objects or rewards, and I think reciprocity to me is only worth returning for work, for actual deliverables on the work side of things, not gifts.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the things in the book. So he talks about, because like I said, the book is actually meant for consumers. He said the best way to defend yourself mentally, maybe this will help, Matt, I don't know, is if you can mentally say, that salesman bought me a coffee because he wants to enact reciprocity, that feeling of reciprocity in me, as soon as you kind of mentally acknowledge it, it lets you off the hook. You're like, I can choose to work with this salesman or not, but I don't owe him that just because he bought me a coffee, especially knowing that he bought me that coffee specifically trying to trigger this emotional response.
Matt can't be bought by coffee or donuts.
Understandable.
It's not the way to Matt's robot heart.
Yeah.
and usually we see through, like, it happens, maybe it's not as the clear sort of example that you're giving is a technique you might see at other things, right? Like, switch to TD and we'll give you an iPad or whatever. But yeah, I mean, we get it at the office. Usually what kind of grinds our gears is when they say there's breakfast at the Monday meeting,
and then it's like Tim
and
Hortons.
There's a speaker, and then they're bringing muffins and coffee, which is
not how I define breakfast.
Barely continental.
Are there any other ways that we see reciprocity in real estate?
Well, I'm trying to think of when you're just maybe going to view a property. Mm-hmm. Right, is something being given to you in a way that makes you feel an obligation. Some people do try like the baking and that kind of stuff. To give you something. Now, some may say that's just to make more of a personal connection with the home, but you are
make it smell good.
Yeah, there's that part too, right? Are you being given something? Are there agents out there who are giving things to you as a consumer in the hopes that you will hire them based on that rather than their merit?
There's an agent, and I won't use his name. Because he's a good friend of ours, whose wife bakes before his open houses, and he's giving out very tasty baked goods. I would think that somewhere in the back of his mind, part of it is, I hope they choose me, like they have a good feeling about me when I give this. I doubt he's mentally thinking they're going to think they owe me and pick me because of that. But I bet he's thinking, I hope they're going to like me, which actually leads us to our next.
Segue.
I segued it. So the next one is liking, and this is just kind of part of the human condition. We like to do business with people that we know, like, and trust. Like is a major part of that, and I like, even knowing this, I don't even see anything wrong with it. Like, it works both ways. We've many times I think even on the show, talked about how certain realtors attract certain types of clients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like to work with clients I like. And vice versa. I think that clients like to work with me because they like me in general. I'm sure I have some clients who do not like me, but for the most part. Where I think this gets into greasy territory is when you're hyper aware of it, and you're first sitting down. One of the things we've all been taught is how to build rapport with people when we meet them. And I think it's very authentic to connect with people. Like, most of my clients have kids around or just a little bit younger than my kids. And I think that's because we have a ton in common to talk about. I fully understand what their needs are in looking for a home. I think it gets into grease factor when you start making things up that you're not into. Like, you see the picture on the wall of the guy fishing, and even though you've never caught a fish in your life, you're like, salmon fishing? I love salmon fishing. Because the point I didn't make is, the research in the book is, people like people who like the same things as them. like there is a huge connection with
relatedness to them. And
yeah, as soon as you are interested in the same things I'm interested in, it's a much smaller gap to get from I don't know you to I like you.
Yeah, and I think that's an important part of our business, but I get genuinely excited
yes.
when I find out somebody I'm working with has a common interest to me.
Totally. Well, this is where, like, if somebody is super into, like, has a cabin at Tulameen, and you have the chance to work with them, I don't think, like, what was our... That's rice cakes. Like, that.
I think family connection, rice cakes all day long.
Yeah.
Really looking through their house to try and find how can I have commonality with these people.
Yeah.
I see a picture of a bridge on the wall. Are they into bridges? Architecture? What do we got going on here?
Although, I mean, I look in houses when I walk in, because I like looking in. That's one of my favorite things is just looking at people's stuff.
It's our part of our job description.
Yeah. and like, I mean, listeners might not know, but I'm a big board game geek. And if I see board games on a shelf, you better believe we're going to talk about it because I'm excited.
So you see Monopoly, you see Pictionary, you see Jenga.
Good. No.
Board game snob.
Yeah, Jared just didn't. Jared's... Yeah, what do
you
call it?
You're alienating all of the other board game people.
Nobody loves Monopoly. There's nobody who...
No, unless it's Go Monopoly.
Yeah, Monopoly Go's fun for sure.
That's a good one.
Yeah, but like, I don't think that's...
But you're not looking through their cupboards for Monopoly Go or whatever.
No, and I'm not like Facebook searching them.
No, but when you're there, you do want to see an opportunity to connect, and I think it's incredibly helpful in our business to understand the client.
Totally.
So if you can find something you connect with, then you can, because you understand that whatever it is, hobby or whatever it is, well, you then have an easier route, a faster route to then understanding them.
Yeah.
Right? Because of that level of commonality, it puts you on a level plane, and then you've pretty much figure out kind of who they are. You know, if they're board game people, you start talking about games and you hear what kind of game they like.
Yeah.
Because you understand board games, you now understand their personality.
Yeah.
Right? If they say, I like Monopoly, you
walk out the front door.
I flip the table. I yell, "You're wrong."
Or if they say one of my favorite games is Pandemic, and Jeff's a board game guy, and we know Pandemic is a co-op game, that changes your perception versus the people who refuse to play co-op games and want to play a cutthroat, 1 versus 1 type game.
Well, and we're going to be spending a couple months together, so it's nice to have stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
So have you ever done a deal over a board game, signing contracts?
While playing a board game?
While playing a game.
No, I have bought board games as like closing gifts.
And we did the big party where we gave away a ton of games and played a ton of games.
Yeah.
That was fun. We should do that again sometime.
So as a sales tactic, you want people to like you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you can be in sales. And I don't know which comes first, chicken or egg. Like, do you get into sales because you want people to like you? Or do you just learn that you need people to like you once you're in sales? But either way it happens, people liking you is a big part of sales. And specifically, I think every personality is going to have people who like them. The trick is finding your tribe. Right? Like,
yeah, absolutely. Everybody definitely has a group of people who could like them. You do mention chicken or the egg.
Yeah.
I will say that before I got in this business, which is like face to face. I was in sales before, but it was different.
Yeah.
My philosophy and personality in life definitely changed. Like, I improved for the better.
Yeah.
I was an angrier person. I definitely walked around with more stress, and I had a shorter fuse.
I feel like that even applies to Matt just when you first joined the office to now. I feel like you were a more stressed person when you joined the office.
Yeah, I've learned to just kind of let a lot of things go and enjoy what's happening.
Jared, you've worn off on
he
that.
Also, yeah, I mean, and he's listening to less punk music now, which has probably helped. a little less gangster rap, but for me, I've always needed people's acceptance. Didn't change, and so even when you lose someone, like not a client, but someone you're trying to get, and then you realize that they went with Jeff or something, it just hurts, You cry a little bit.
Me?
Matt, what happened? What did I do wrong?
But you don't want to screw it up, so you learn to be more likable, and it was a learned trait. But in the end, I am a much happier person.
Yeah.
I enjoy more people more. I enjoy a broader sort of range of personalities.
Yeah.
And I'm virtually never upset now. I mean, I get annoyed by things, but I don't get like angry.
You're not losing it.
Yeah.
Like you were.
Can brush it off pretty good.
So where do we put this one on the scale? Is this, as long as you're being honest, this is pretty...
Even if it's a little,
what did we call it? Melba toast? What was
Is
the
rice cakes?
Rice cakes.
I think as a tactic, it's mostly rice cakes because it's hard to trick someone into liking you.
And it's kind of harmless, even if it does go to like John Stamos, Uncle Jesse mode.
Yeah,
it's still, you're just trying to get someone to like you. You're not necessarily like a real greasy move is potentially you know, to the detriment of the consumer or the client potentially.
The super greasy version in the book is this guy who, and I forget his name, he was the #1 car salesman in the States for like 5 years in a row. And he wrote a book on sales called How to Sell Anything to Anybody. And it's step 1, walk in, ask them where they've traveled to. Step 2, no matter where they say, be like, oh, I was there. That was amazing.
Like, so there is a greasy way.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're lying and being deceitful, yeah, I guess it's just how are you actually connecting with somebody? Or
because our relationships go so deep, like you said, we spend 2 months together.
Yeah,
you can't fake it.
when I was traveling in Japan, I'm like 15 on a cultural exchange.
I've been there.
You've been to Japan?
It was amazing.
Oh,
yeah. Oh, I see what you. And you know what?
Food.
Immediately, I was like, "Oh, Jared and I have something to talk about." Well played, sir.
You need to read the book again.
I went to Japan on a cultural exchange, and I think my host dad was really disappointed in me because I wasn't a sports kid, and like he's like, and I think he wanted like he's like, "Tell me about hockey," and I'm like, "I don't play hockey." He's like, "Oh. You play football?" I'm like, "I don't play football." And we just went down the list, and I could see him getting sadder and sadder. He was a traffic cop, and really nice guy. And he finally got to golf, and I had played a little bit of golf. Like, I took golf lessons. I was a junior member, or I wasn't a junior member. I was almost a junior member. My dad tried to make me a junior at Vancouver Golf Club, and I just wasn't into it. But I knew enough about golf that I could talk about it. So I just decided, like, for this guy's sake, I'd be like, I like golf. And then we had a big, long conversation about golf. And I was like, whew, I did it. And then he woke me up at 6 a.m. and he's like really excited. He's like, get in the car. And we drive out and he doesn't tell me where we're going. And we get to a golf course and like not a course, a driving range. And he's like, teach me. And I'm like, oh no. And I'm trying to remember every lesson I've ever had. And I crack one and it goes like I hit it really well. I'm like, I can do this. And then for the rest of the day, I couldn't hit one more than like a couple feet. And then finally he's like, well, let me try. And he just nails one. And he looks at me and he goes, Geoff, big liar. I'm big liar too. And he totally knew how to golf. And then, but I mean, I felt that pull of like, I need to relate to this guy on some level.
Well, he was trying too.
Yeah. Oh,
so
yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
Like, find something relatable.
Yeah.
Oh, poor guy.
Yeah. And then he took me on his motorcycle, and that was really fun because in small town Japan, when you're the traffic cop, you do whatever you want. Okay, so we've talked about scarcity, we've talked about reciprocity and liking. Now the next one is authority. And the classic example of this is, they talk about it in the book Influence, and I've read about it in a bunch of other books, this experiment that was done where guy's in a lab coat, guy being experimented on is in the room. He thinks the experiment is a guy sitting in a chair, and he's supposed to turn a dial that administers pain. And it's actually an actor in the chair. There's no pain happening. But they test somebody in a lab coat telling him to do it. And chances are, if the guy's wearing a lab coat, most of the people, or at least the majority of the people, were willing to increase the level of pain to the point of torture.
Right, there was like a red line, right? Like the super pain zone.
Yeah,
and they would go past the
line. They would go there if somebody wearing the lab coat was, and not even identified as a scientist, just the coat, right? What does authority look like in real estate?
You wear a lab coat to your open houses.
All right. You had a really good joke about going to Japan. I feel like that one wasn't quite as solid.
Authority.
Yeah.
Well, like start with the fancy car.
Yep. Totally.
Yep.
Yep.
I like that one because it's it's kind of like our storefront for people. If they meet you, you could be meeting, say you give us a call, we never meet you. Our first physical encounter meeting is in front of a listing, in front of a house, and they see you pulling up, and the difference between you pulling up in a BMW or Mercedes or whatever, and like a Toyota Tercel, or what's the Tercel now? They don't have one. What's the Toyota Camry? Corolla? They still make those?
Run with the Corolla, sure.
Okay, Corolla.
Yeah.
You know, a rust bucket.
Yeah.
That there's an impression.
Even a brand new Corolla. There's
how good can this guy be at his job?
Totally.
If he's rocking a subcompact or whatever.
Yeah, so there are aesthetic ways of demonstrating your authority, which is a demonstration of your success, right?
Yeah. I think another one is the fill in the blank specialist.
Like New West?
Well, let's get a little bit more specific, like the luxury specialist.
Oh, yeah.
Or the Queensboro
That's
specialist or whatever,
Matt's
right?
Counter, I think. So.
Yeah, I like my favorite is relocation specialist. I'm really good at relocating people.
As opposed to the rest of us. Well, and it's not so big here, but in the States, realtors love their designations.
Yeah, they'll put all the
I'm the senior home downsizing specialist.
Yeah, they got senior specialist, first time buyer specialist. All sorts of green specialist or some
negotiation.
When the
expert,
what did they call the short sale specialist when the market was falling and all over the place.
So professional designations give you credentials.
Yeah.
Right? Does that carry any weight when you see someone's business card and it says Masters of Science or Bachelor of Science?
We're just really beating up on this one realtor who's actually a friend of the
show.
Matt
has a degree. Matt has a degree too.
Is this not is this you?
No.
Do you have?
Well, I have.
You don't put it on a card.
I don't put my university degree on my card. I don't, and I don't think that the person you're thinking of does either. I wasn't thinking of him.
No,
No, there are people though who very explicitly, like on all of their marketing, it's their name followed by BSc. Bachelors of Science, right? And things like that. Things that are clearly not very related to real estate. That's why I don't put my Bachelor of Human Kinetics on my real estate card.
I don't put film school certificate on my real estate card.
But it is a credential. So they're using it as an attempted authority. Now, is that part of this tactic of authority to say that at least I have a credential?
I think the goal is the authority goal. Like most of these sales tactics happen while I'm sitting in the room with you.
Oh,
this one is setting the table. Right? This is before we've even started. You already are thinking of me as the authority, and you're going to listen to what I say. And I think putting a designation on a card is totally that.
Well, we get and this for real estate is, I don't know if this is true for other sort of sales or other things, but we love pats on the back, whether it's your brokerage patting you on the back for some diamond platinum club, your real estate board.
Yeah, totally.
So if you walk into someone's, not that people go into real estate offices anymore, but if you did have somebody in there and they had all these real estate trophies and things like that,
I have to admit,
you're flexing some muscle.
I do that on. I put on, and I don't think most people care, but I do put on some of my real estate awards in my listing presentation, and it's totally with the point of being like, without me having to come and say I've sold a lot of real estate.
And we're defensive with it because we come from an industry where the majority of realtors aren't selling any product.
Yeah.
But everybody wins an award.
But
like every brokerage, every entity in real estate has a way of making sure that everyone working under their umbrella gets an award because they understand that giving them an award gives them an opportunity to sell their authority when trying to get new clients, right? So absolutely that's part of it. So from a consumer looking at that, and I want to, I'm working in real estate and what's greasy or what's not.
Yeah.
It's when these designations and awards are on there that actually
don't apply
or are not very very significant feats.
Yes.
I don't think it's greasy or anything. It's probably just rice cake because the public doesn't know the difference between a platinum or a diamond.
That's my concern of why it's greasy, though, is that if you won the lowest possible award that you could get.
Right. You won the I sold one house this year award.
Yeah, but they call that, whatever it is.
Bronze level or whatever.
But they give every one of them a
nice name.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like it came in second or third.
Yeah.
There's like President's Choice one, like for like the Sutton brokerage has a different sort of weird stuff
I don't even
never
know.
heard of.
Every
That's the
brokerage
funny
is
thing
different,
too. Is
right? Too.
I know what Remax's awards mean. I have no idea. When I see friends from other agencies posting their awards, I'm like, I don't know if that's good. I don't know if it's bad.
Yeah, and we don't know, and that's the greasy part, is that it might be like you got that award just because you made it through a whole year in the brokerage.
Yeah.
Right? And now you have an award, and the consumer sees that and says, look, I am hiring an award-winning agent.
Yes.
So hanging your hat on that as an advertising model to convince people to hire you, to me, is greasy.
Yeah.
Because they're being sold, it's somewhat fraudulent to me, right?
Yeah.
Again, and that falls to me this voice of authority saying I'm a top selling agent or I am number one. And I always laugh that somebody used to give this example of this one agent who'd say like I'm number one agent, and then you'd put an asterisk
in the week of
that says like on Edinburgh Street for the second week of September.
Yeah,
Edinburgh Street.
I haven't heard that one.
Episode 8
before.
From 1 p.m. to 5 p.m.
Yeah, so he puts like this very specific disclaimer, so you can always be number one because you can make yourself number one in any category if you.
Yeah, you can cook the stats if you don't read the fine print.
So he was having fun with that, but it's amazing how many number one realtors exist out here in advertising, right?
Yeah,
and that is definitely my concern with authority from that level. Okay. If we're talking about designations, we talked about cars. I like wearing suits. Often.
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but a suit would definitely be a piece of clothing that establishes authority. I don't think in a greasy way at all, but you're 100% communicating I am a professional. That is the intent.
Yeah, and I have that in my mind depending on where I'm going, like what type of property, if I think the other agent's going to be there, what type of person they are, and who my clients are. I always like to be, even if it's only half a level higher than my clients, and typically on par or somewhere sort of in line with the other agent.
Yeah.
So that I fit in that hierarchy as far as
and then you
formality.
show a $2 million house and the guy's wearing flip-flops.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that makes me the authority, which is fine. Like, go ahead. That guy can show up and look like that. Now I am the authority.
I think bus benches are probably a form of authority as well. Like, especially when you put all the benches in one neighborhood. So you're like, oh, man, I don't even remember that necessarily I see Matt in that neighborhood all the time. Like, I see Matt's signs all over the place.
All it proves is you spend a lot of money on bus benches,
right?
And you spend that, and it's concentrated on a couple, certain streets in a certain area.
Yeah.
As a sales tactic, though, definitely makes you look like an authority.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes it look like you have money to spend, which means you're successful.
Yeah.
And it means that you're concentrated in an area. So there's
do you think that's greasy?
I think it's greasy like the guy who calls himself a luxury specialist and rarely sells anything luxury, like if you check their portfolio. And if there's those bus benches and you come in and you say, I am the Kerrisdale specialist, and you've got a whole load of bus benches, but you've actually only ever done one transaction there because you're new to the area, that to me is greasy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this one, for the most part, if you're being honest and transparent, like the awards thing that you brought up, to me, that's, if you don't put some sort of clarification on what that award means, that's an Uncle Jesse. but I mean,
don't touch the hair.
As long as you're like, I always in my listing presentation put in that I'm medallion and that Dad is lifetime medallion. But I also put something in to explain it because I want them to know what it means. For those who don't know in the audience, medallion is just the top 10%.
It's volume based, which is
number
the
of transactions,
which is probably the best way to measure success in the business, really, right? So that's a normal one.
Yeah.
And then I think you recently got your Hall of Fame status.
Yeah.
Which I have as well.
Yeah.
And it's just a really funny one because it has nothing to do with volume.
No.
It's very funny, and once you get it, you always have it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, just like the real Hall of Fame in sports, once you're in, you're in. But yeah, it's just I actually don't like talking about the Hall of Fame one as much.
Neither do I, but I had to bring it up because the name is ridiculous.
Yes.
it is not commensurate with what the award represents.
It's misleading.
It's completely misleading. It makes you sound like you are an all-time, success favorite, and it's broken.
Yeah, and it's just a matter of, for the audience who's like, well, tell me already. Yeah. It's just about commission earned over the career at Remax.
So if you have been in real estate for 20 years, but only at Remax for 2, it's going to take you a little while to get your Remax Hall of Fame.
Yeah. So,
what's number 5?
Number 5 is consistency. And this one, the title doesn't actually explain what it is very well. So, as human beings, the theory is essentially that we like to be consistent, and for the most part, human beings like to be as true to their word as possible. Most of us really hate hypocrites, and we don't like to see ourselves as hypocritical. So the way this works in sales is if you get people to verbally commit to things, they are, on some level, it is much harder for them to go back on their word. That doesn't mean they're never going to, but from a sales perspective, if you get somebody to say, yes, I'm going to work with you, they're much more likely to honor that than somebody who has not.
Sort of implicit commitment versus...
Yes. And then where I would say we start getting into Uncle Jesse double down territory is the more we commit to things, the more likely we are to commit to other things. So the sales tactic is get a yes on something small, get a bigger yes, get a bigger yes, get a bigger yes, and then all of a sudden you've signed a listing.
So that's the encyclopedia guy at your door saying, "Do you folks, you look like you care about your children." Would that be a true statement?
Yes. Yeah.
and you feel that
you value education.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I had something that would help you with that, would that be something you'd be interested in?
Yes.
and on it goes.
Yeah, and it's been a long time since I've read this book. I couldn't remember what his exact example was, but it's what Jer just brought up. The 3 yeses is the sales.
Getting to yes.
Getting to yes. Totally.
Yeah. Usually if a salesperson's asking you, would that be something you'd be interested in? your red flag.
Danger.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the guy, and you guys have been around when I get the cold calls.
Oh, I love when Matt gets cold called at the office by a sales guy.
What if I told you I could increase your leads and increase your business?
The guys who are calling realtors are so bad, too. Like, do you want more listings? And every time I'm like, no,
I'm good.
No, I don't want more listings. I know what you're doing. And that's what I think, but that's what Matt really says.
Yeah, because once you're told this, you do start to get defensive, right? You don't want to just start throwing out yeses and taking the bait on this stuff.
Yeah.
You don't want to get played.
Well, this is one that intellectually sounds so stupid. Like, to me, I'm like, just because I said, yes, I like education, and yes, I like my kids, I'm not going to buy the encyclopedias. But science disagrees with my natural impulse.
Yeah, I mean, not everyone will, but there's a percentage who, if you just outright ask them, will you buy this, the answer is definitely no. But if you warm them into it, you're definitely going to close a whole lot more people. Our business is a bit different that way because very rarely do you... fool someone into buying a house just by asking enough yes questions.
Are you looking for a place for your family?
Yeah, this one I had the hardest time thinking about how it applies to our business.
Well, you can follow the same methodology like Jer was just doing with the encyclopedia. As if,
how do I get those encyclopedias, by the way, Jer?
I'll tell you after the show.
Okay.
They're in the computer.
Excellent Zoolander reference.
So let's say you know your clients pretty well. You started with step 3, and they like you.
Yeah,
and you understand their personal situation pretty good. And you go through a house, and you actually know they quite like it, or that it would be a good fit for them, but they're having a tough time.
Yeah,
you say, well, hey guys, you're really into board games, and it's got this like board game room here, Den, and all these built-in shelving for storing that. I mean, that's probably a pretty good situation for what you guys are moving in here. Yeah, I really like that, and that's a good gaming table area there. I really like that. That's really good. Oh, you guys like cycle a lot. This one has like the attached garage, and it's got got a little extra depth where you guys can keep all your bikes secure. I mean, that's probably an important part. Yes, it is. I really like that it has that. And you can walk them through checking some boxes to help them maybe get over some anxiety to making an offer.
Now that you're saying this, I feel like I do this without actually realizing on a conscious level, because I never ask someone, oh, you like this? Do you want to write an offer? Like, usually I start with the home. Like, did you like the home? What did you like about it? We talk about that, and then go into, well, what about the neighborhood? Could you see yourself living here? Blah, blah, blah. And if they've answered yes to all of those, I think to myself, oh man, I'd better ask them if they want to write this, because it sounds like they want to buy it.
So are you closing them or are you closing you?
I might be closing me.
You're like, should I be recommending that we proceed?
Yeah.
Part of that's just doing your job properly.
Yeah.
Going through, like, your initial meeting with these buyers, you're going through what's important to you.
Yeah.
So you're going through, and they're all of a sudden they're spending a half an hour in this house.
Yeah.
Or instead of 15 minutes, and you're like, this actually seems like they really like it. Going through those things, the objections. Does it handle those objections you had?
Yeah.
Yes or no? It's not a sales when we do it. It's
Yeah, but that is consistency.
But I guess
The
that
title
is
is consistency.
that
We
is-
are saying that this home is consistent with your needs.
Yeah.
You've told me what you want. I'm helping.
and because if it
validate
doesn't,
that.
then we need to adjust things.
Yeah,
So-
and maybe we can also be as facilitators help on the opposite end when somebody says this doesn't check the boxes, but I want to buy it, and then we say, hold on a second, let's go back and look at our
Oh, yeah.
list of priorities.
you said you needed
There's a lot
this.
of times where you're like, wait a second. You told me you really needed a yard, and this just has a little stamp in the back.
Did something happen to your dog?
Are you really okay with this? Because, I mean, once people get out there looking, sometimes their needs change, but you want to just make sure.
Yeah, so in that vein where we're helping to facilitate, that's pretty rice cakes greasy to me. But I've also been there and experienced it as a listing agent when somebody walks in with their client where they get real KFC double down.
Yeah.
And they're telling their client, like, this is the best deal. You can't pass this up. You have to buy this one. If you don't buy this one,
Yeah.
I'll buy it.
Oh, man. There's some scarcity going on. There's some
But
authority there.
those guys who maybe are pushing a lot harder, right?
Yeah.
Less as a facilitator, all of those yeses of consistency versus maybe a more aggressive approach like Jeremy's first example with Encyclopedia. I'm having a hard time thinking of a good example of that, but I can definitely see some agents who are better at getting their clients to write on something that maybe wasn't all of their yeses, but the agent asked enough questions framed the right way to get them to say yes, even though everyone knew maybe it wasn't a good fit.
I have a feeling, too, that this might apply more to getting the listing than getting the actual buying a home.
Well, that's a good spin, too, yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of sitting at the table where people maybe want to take the evening to think about it, and a very aggressive agent will start getting them to say yes on a bunch of stuff.
What is it
and
that's
then
making you want to think about this?
Well, if all of those things are great and I can get you everything you want, why don't we just sign the listing tonight?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, which is obviously a key part there. And then the same goes when they're negotiating, right?
Yeah.
Right? Your client is being resistant on a certain price, and the agent can get enough yeses to get them to take a price that when you first walked in the door, the seller wasn't interested in accepting.
Yeah.
So there might be something going on there that gets down into the KFC double down territory.
I think this is one to really think about. Of all of them, this is the one to me, when I was refreshing myself on the book, that I had A, forgotten about, and B, was like, this one isn't quite as intuitive as some of the other ones, but when I start to think about it, it is very real.
Well, there's so many levels that the consumer can get sold by an agent.
Yes.
Right? Like getting the listing agreement
signed.
signed.
I just said yes to Matt. I'm in trouble.
It's the first yes. First, you have to sign an agreement to work together, but then you're working together and you have to agree on, then you're negotiating, and there's that part going on. And then maybe you're buying and you're agreeing which properties to see and then which properties to make an offer on. And then you got to make an offer, but now you're negotiating with your client who's negotiating with someone else. There's so many opportunities for the agent to use this model to say, this confirm, this is what you said you wanted. Yes. And this is what you said you were looking for? Yes. And this is the outcome you said you wanted? Yes. Okay. So why aren't we proceeding?
And you said you wanted to get the kids into school before it started. Yes.
Right. So some things. So what are we doing here? Are we making ourselves look bad, or are we just as a cautionary tale to make sure it's consistent with the consumer's actual needs?
To this one, I feel like on the grease scale really can be all over the place. And I think it's just something that the consumer needs to keep in the back of their mind. That if I'm getting asked a lot of questions, it may be for my best interest, it may be not, but I just need to know that mentally when I'm saying yes consistently, I'm more susceptible to saying yes to the next thing.
And other than being greasy, I mean, if we were closing buyers like that, and I always tell our clients this, you know, when I'm working to sell your home, I'm in sales mode. You know, everything I can do to sell your home, that's what you've hired me for. But when I'm working with a buyer, my goal is I'm not there to sell anything. I'm there to be a resource, there for information. So yeah, I don't think I would feel like if you sold if you were an aggressive salesperson and you were closing your buyers, so to speak, during their subject removal period, that's when I think they're going to have, and doesn't like, maybe this happened to me once, but where someone's like wakes up in the morning and realizes I was just closed on writing the offer on this place. We don't like this place.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get into the last one. So the last one is Concensus, and essentially what this boils down to is that we trust our friends and people we actually know more than we trust science and polls. An example of this, which was not from the book, because I can't remember the example from the book, but would be if you go on Rotten Tomatoes and the movie you want to see...
Maybe I can find the example from the book.
Oh, you got it there?
I've been hanging on to that
one.
Matt
was doing some homework.
No, I've actually never opened it.
But you've owned it before we planned this episode?
It's my wife's book.
Oh.
She's read it and loves it.
Yeah.
Told me about it.
Yeah.
I've never opened it.
Nice.
But I thought, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm going to have this on hand just in case.
That was a good little reveal. That was some good radio there, Matt. For those not listening, Matt just pulled out the book as if from nowhere.
Surprise.
Do any of the techniques sort of ring true, sound familiar? Has your wife been using them on you?
Yeah. How often does Liz get 3 yeses before she asks you what she really wants? Okay, so back to Concensus. So my example would be, you want to go to a movie and you look up on Rotten Tomatoes and it's got a terrible score. And for those who don't know, Rotten Tomatoes collects all of the reviews on the internet and puts them together. So this should be a very reliable source. Mm-hmm. But then you walk over to your friend Jeremy and Jeremy is like, oh, actually, I really liked that movie. And the human condition is to weight Jeremy's opinion higher than those hundreds of reviews on Rotten Tomatoes.
Really? My opinion?
If I like you.
Oh.
And I think you have similar taste in movies than me and whatnot.
Not board games.
Sure, yeah. If you,
we like the same
games. If you liked board games, this would be.
I love board games. Avid board game.
If you liked playing board games,
correction. love playing. Okay, I like watching. I like watching people play board games.
So, to me, I think the biggest real estate example that jumps out in my head is either the referral or testimonials. And the modern version of this would be Google reviews, Facebook reviews.
Yeah.
Like that's... And I don't know if this is greasy at all. I don't know what the greasy version of this looks like. Like, is there a greasy version? I guess if you're paying people's friends to say nice things about you. Like...
Online reviews, I feel they're pretty credible. I don't know if you see a restaurant or something, and if it's below 3, you're probably not going there. I think even if you said it was good,
well, that actually, the flip side, like restaurants is a perfect example, because if I get bad reviews on a restaurant, but one of my friends says they liked it, I'll go check that restaurant out for sure.
My concern with this about real estate is when someone is told, like, oh, you have to hire my realtor, they're the best.
Yeah.
How much context does that person have to know that their realtor is the best?
Yeah.
I get it. You hired the realtor. From your perspective, you had a good experience. Well, if you've only ever had one experience, how do you know they did it right?
Yeah, I mean, the best is obviously hyperbole. What they probably do know is that they felt well taken care of, that they probably felt like they had their best needs at heart, and probably they're a good judge of whether or not they can trust that person. Whether they're the best
Well, yeah, the fact that they're an advocate for this person, unfortunately, I've seen it where many times an agent, they come in like, oh no, I was told to work with this agent. My friend said that this is definitely the person to hire, and you're like, this is absolutely the wrong person to hire.
Yeah,
this agent is not qualified from 3 different perspectives. Your friend I know is trying to help you and thinks that this person is a good fit, but they're wrong.
Well, and this is where it goes to in the book is on an individual level, we're not always correct, but we tend to trust our friends more.
Yes. So I don't know if there's a way that we as like realtors leverage that to dupe the consumer. I think the consumer has probably done a disservice from this perspective, just from their friends who, granted, don't have enough experience in real estate to know why one agent is better than another. They're just saying my experience was good, and so the person looking for an agent says, well, my friend who I trust said they had a good experience. I even had somebody say to me once, I'd rather get screwed by an agent that was recommended to me than by a stranger. Like, he just assumed that every realtor was going to screw him over.
What a weird statement.
Yeah, but that because he didn't hire me, and he hired somebody who was brand new.
Yeah.
Had no idea what she was doing. I watched the transaction, completely screwed it up.
Yeah.
But his language to me was, well, Matt, I mean, it looks like kind of you know what you're doing around here, but I'm going to get screwed either way. I'd rather get screwed by someone I know than someone I don't.
Wow.
So
and they don't know either, right? To them, it was a good experience, but they have no idea that that's not how it's supposed to go.
No, they don't know that their agent didn't do a bunch of showings or was poorly marketing their home or categorized it wrong or whatever. People don't know the parts that were missing.
They just know it was fun. What a fun experience, but it wasn't. Yeah.
So that's where maybe this to a consumer could. I mean, but the thing is, our listeners.
Yeah.
As we do this show more and more, and we're getting more engagement with our listeners, are the analytical type who aren't going to get caught by just one person's opinion.
You are suckholing so bad right now.
I'm being sincere.
No, I know. I'm just giving you a hard time.
The type of people who are listening to this show are doing their homework.
Yeah, the person who decides to listen to a weekly real estate podcast is probably not the guy who hires the realtor who's been in business for 2 weeks.
Well, they don't just accept that somebody hands over a name and they say, cool, I'll hire that person, I trust you. They're going to do a little more research.
You know who I've realized has more authority right now than anyone? Just going back for a second. The mommy groups.
They do.
There is so much power in the mommy groups. Yeah.
Well, none of us can join.
We are not allowed.
Not allowed.
Yeah.
There's a ton of power in those.
When
people see recommendations in there, they're all over it,
The
right?
gospel.
Yeah.
And the same risk is at hand there, hiring anyone, even if it's just a painter.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, can you recommend a painter? Oh, yeah. Well, this person came in. I thought they did a good job. Well, did you get 3 quotes? I mean, you liked them and you did a good job. Cool. But do you know if they were actually good value?
I will say, to the credit of I don't know about all the mommy groups, but I get recommended in the New West Mom group from time to time. And usually when I get called in, they're interviewing a couple other agents.
Well, the type of people who look for recommendations typically want...
Well, and there's a storm of names. Like I always ask where people got my name from, and if they say the mom group, I'm always like, oh, who else was recommended? And they've got like a list of 15 agents who have been recommended, and they picked 3, and away they went.
Yeah, everybody just jumps on, oh, my friend. Yeah. Yeah, I know a person. And that's the risk in this, though,
it's just
right?
Opinions.
It's just their friend. They're trying to help their friend. Like if they got 15 names that are on there, I'm willing to bet 10 of them are completely ill-qualified for what that person is asking for help for.
I would think that's fair. In the mom group recommendations, I would say probably a third of the recommendations are usually like names that consistently work in New West. But there's always some, and they don't usually get called. So, I mean, these people are doing, but there's always somewhere, because Rachel's in the group, and sometimes she'll be like, hey, you got mentioned in here. And then when I scroll through, I'm like, I don't know that dude. I don't know that dude either. Who's that lady?
That's the part that's kind of making my blood boil about this, right? Is that somebody is coming out there and advocating for this person, and they're not a good fit, right? But as a sales tactic, like it works.
We put more weight on it for some...
Yeah, proven we do, and that's why we want to gather our testimonials.
Like a recommendation made on an individual level is more valuable than...
a Google review.
So would it be a total Uncle Jesse eating a double down if Matt or I tried to get our wives into this mommy group so that local other New West agents get to be plugged? Is that greasy?
Well, you guys do come up already. So, yeah.
Thanks, mommy group. Big fans over here.
My wife is not in the mom group, so I'm not getting that intel.
Yeah. But because Rachel has from time to time recommended me, and whenever she throws that in there, I always tell the person, because Rachel and I don't have the same last name. And I don't want them to find out. Like, I don't want them to think that they were hoodwinked. Like, I'm like, oh, who recommended me? And luckily, usually it's Rach and a couple other people.
You're rice caking it.
Well, yeah, I just don't. I want to be
full disclosure.
I want the transparency of a rice cake, not the indigestion of a double down.
That's funny.
Okay, so those are our 6 weapons of influence. I hope the listeners got a lot out of that. I had a lot of fun talking about this stuff with you guys.
That was a fun one. Nice break from the politics.
Yeah. And speaking of which, next week we will be back with a little bit more politics. I'm really excited. Matt, who are we having on next week?
The mayor. He's going to come to my house.
Wow.
Sit in my dining room. The mayor.
Are you going to let him use your mic?
Oh.
No. The guests.
3 no's.
No, the guests always get the SM58. There's consistency in that.
My mic. Okay.
Yeah. The guests always get that one.
So we're having the mayor on. We're gonna talk some more questions. Probably a lot of the same questions we did before, but if people have other questions, please send those to feedback@morealestateshow.com. We'd love to have some new ones to send to them. And if you guys are enjoying this show, please think about leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. We've been really happy with the growth of the series so far, but that just helps us keep getting out to more people.
And future show topics.
And
once we're done with elections.
If you've got an idea for something you want to talk about or want us to talk about, that would be great. Yep, for sure.
Hey, and a neat new addition to the show. We just started publishing to YouTube.
Yeah.
The radio show on YouTube.
The radio show on YouTube. But I discovered as we were preparing for the show today that when we put in our show notes timestamps on when different topics come up, is you can just click right on that time and jump ahead.
Neat. So you can now find us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube.
Yeah, so we're on all podcast platforms and now video platforms.
Nice. That's very cool. All right, well, if you want to get a hold of Matt Brabbins or Jeremy Ray, you can find them at thenewwestguys.com. If you want to get a hold of me, Geoff McLennan, I am at realestatennewwest.com. That's going to do it for today. Thank you guys very much.